Welcome to the Questions Podcast, where I ask questions of people I admire. I'm your host, Laura Wimberly. You were born in Missouri, right? Poplar Bluff?
Yes, I was born in southeast Missouri,
Poplar Bluff?
Poplar Bluff.
Okay.
We lived there for 4 years and then moved to Texas. So I've been in Texas my entire
Mainly
life.
Texas. I almost
Since
thought you were
four.
born in Corpus with Mom, but because you moved so much.
Right.
I had to think about it for a minute.
Right.
But it was Poplar Bluff.
Poplar
Are you the
Bluff.
only one, right, out of the three?
Only one,
Girl.
right, out of my siblings that were born in Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
But you're pretty much a born Texan, I would say.
We'll say that for the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty much are.
Yes.
And you went to
We'll
UT, so you have that.
There we go.
Your siblings don't have that.
That's right. That's right.
So did it bother you that me and my sisters were so obsessed with you when we were little?
No. I mean, for me, it was like having little sisters and little brothers with the rest of the nieces and nephews.
Really?
Yeah, because my three sisters are quite a bit older than me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot older. And so, when you and your sisters and the rest of the nieces and nephews started to come along, it was great. It was, our family is funny because we have these overlapping generations.
We do,
right?
we do.
And so, but that's great. And I love it.
I always feel like we bugged you. But it's good to know. I never heard you say that we were like your siblings, but I guess you kind of, how far apart are you and my mom?
13 years.
Okay. But
and then Amanda I'm only 11 years older than Amanda.
That's what I was going to say. You're 13 years older than me. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of right in the middle.
Exactly.
That makes sense. I feel like you're really, really smart.
Do I need to stop the
No.
recording again?
Didn't academics come easily to you though?
Well, maybe, but certain subjects, but I don't think I ever really had good study habits until later in life when I went back to school.
Okay.
I just didn't apply myself like I could have.
In high school? Mm-hmm. Because that's what I was going to ask. Did you like high school in college, or you liked college better than high school?
So, when we moved to Texas, we moved around quite a bit. So I spent some time growing up in West Texas, spent a lot of time, like early elementary was in West Texas, and then later elementary all the way up through my freshman year in high school was in South Texas. Mm-hmm. So a lot of growing up down there, but in different towns. And then my freshman year in high school, we moved to Kerrville, and I graduated from Kerrville. And I did. I enjoyed it. I think maybe, I'm not sure why the study habits weren't there. But I don't know that school always came easy to me, but I think when I would apply myself, I did well, but if I was bored, then I would kind of, flake out and not really focus like I could have. So after high school, I went to college for 2 years, dropped out, and then there were probably 4 or 5 years there that I just didn't have any direction, really, and was kind of bouncing around. And so it wasn't until I was, mid to late 20s that I went back to school to get my undergrad. And by then I was really focused.
Yeah.
And so I was applying myself and from there went on, got a couple of master's degrees. But it came later.
Does that kind of tell you though, like how people are so different when it comes to school, that you did better in your late 20s?
Yeah, I mean, there are some kids that are really focused,
Yeah.
that know exactly what they want to do. They apply themselves.
That was not me.
They get through school with great grades,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and on to whatever they're going to do professionally. It took me a while.
Yeah.
And, I'll have people tell me that their kids are struggling or, don't have a lot of direction. But just from my personal experience, I'm able to tell them to have grace and have patience, because for some folks, it just takes longer.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. What did studying look like for you? Kind of what type of person were you when it came to studying? How did you study?
Well, so when I went back to school as an older student, I would go to the library. I would find one of the side rooms. They're almost just like a closet with a desk, right? And I would go in there, and that's what I would have to do to focus
Really?
and make myself kind of grind through the work.
Really? You had to have it silent. Like
I had to have silent, no distractions, right? So maybe a touch of a little ADHD or something there.
Oh, you
but
think?
Possibly. I mean, just looking back, right?
Yeah.
It what it took to really focus, maybe.
And you kind of figured that out on your own though. Like no one, did you have like a teacher or a tutor that helped you see that about you, or that was just something you figured out on
No,
your
but
own?
I did, when I went back, I started utilizing tutors when they were available. And, you know, that's something that I would recommend for anybody that's
Yeah.
going to school now is take advantage of all the resources that you have.
Yeah, especially
Right?
today.
You have classes that you're struggling with, make sure you're going to the study sessions. Make sure that you're using tutors or career services or whatever they're offering.
Today, your perspective now, do you think college is for everybody?
I don't. I think there are plenty of people that could do well with an associate's degree, with going to a trade school, or even just working, maybe becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of paths to success.
And there's a lot of like certifications you can get too.
A lot of certifications, right?
days
Especially in
without-
technology.
Yeah, yep.
For sure.
That's true. You started out studying one major, right? And then when you went back later, you switched?
Started out studying biology.
Okay.
And I was actually on an academic scholarship for biology my first year in college.
Did you pretty much put yourself through college when you went back?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
How many jobs did you work? Because I feel like I mean, I was young, but I feel like I remember hearing like you were busy.
Yeah, I was taking a full load because I just wanted to get out, and also working a couple of jobs, and
Yeah.
also involved in student government and some of the
Really?
organizations.
I didn't know you were in student government.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what was your major when you went back?
Computer information systems.
Okay.
Yeah,
So is that what you're in today pretty much?
I work in technology today. Over 25 years now.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But so here's kind of how it went down for me. Is when I was in high school, I took a computer science class, and this is back, late 80s. During the class, at one point, we were assigned a pretty complex programming assignment, right? I started working on it, and the class and the computer lab were same room, right? So everyone's working on their own computer. And I finished the assignment really quickly, which I didn't always do in other classes, right? So I finished the assignment really quickly, and I'm looking around, and everyone else is still heads down working. And so I thought, man, I've screwed this up. I missed something in the instructions or something. So I called the teacher over, and I told her, I said, I think I missed something here because I finished, but everybody else is still working. So would you check my work and let me know? Did I miss part of the instructions? And so she went through it, and she looked at me, and she was not one that was given to a lot of compliments. Yeah. And she just said, well, I think you found your niche.
Oh, wow.
But at that time, there weren't a lot of technology jobs.
Yeah.
So I kind of forgot about it for a few years. And like I said, my focus was more biology and pre-med. And so I kind of put that away. I ended up in Austin in mid to late 90s. I was working at a restaurant, and the internet was really becoming a big thing at that point. And so a lot of technology workers in Austin, and I would wait on these customers and hear them talking about their jobs and what they were doing. And
You were a waiter while you were.
I was a waiter, and I remember distinctly there was a couple, they were on a date, and it was I guess it was like a first date, but the guy was bragging to his date about how much money he made, and I immediately thought back to Mrs. Yates in computer science class in high school telling me.
Yep.
It was like a movie flashback in my mind, right? I
Yeah.
can hear her saying, like, I think you found your niche. And I was thinking, well, wait, what am I doing? So later that week, I went to the community college and signed up for a programming course.
Really?
And
That fast.
yeah.
I love that.
And
That's
you know,
awesome.
the admissions lady, she tried to talk me out of it. She said, hey, look, this class is really for people that kind of have some background and are more advanced, which it kind of offended me a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, just let me sign up for the. So I almost out of spite, I signed up for the class anyway, and it went great. I mean, it was
Really?
I went from kind of not having any direction to just kind of in a path that was really hand in glove.
That's really interesting. Wow. So 25 years, over 25 years?
Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate blessed because I graduated at a time when technology workers
That's
were
true.
in really high demand.
That's true.
So it was just God's timing
Yeah.
that all of it worked out
It was
how
like
it did.
booming.
Yeah.
It was like a perfect time to
Yeah,
get a job.
it was great. It
That's
was a great time to be in Austin. I mean, it was growing, but it was very vibrant. A ton of people moving there, so it was great.
Have you ever felt like your career stalled in the last 25 years? And if it did, what did you do to change that?
I can't think of a particular instance when I thought that it had stalled, but I've definitely had periods where I know that I need to change direction, but
yeah.
within the same career. Software development is what I was doing initially. That work started going offshore.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I said, okay, I knew I wanted to stay in technology, but just changed the capacity that I was working. And so then moved into product management, which I've been, still do today.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think just to expand on that a little bit, I think, there's going to be times in your career you have to, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? And there are going to be times when you're just heads down grinding it out,
Yeah.
right? And you'll go through those periods and then you'll get a break and get to do something else that's exciting. And you look back and you realize that you gained some valuable experience. You also build political capital wherever you're at, meaning, you get a reputation for someone that has a good, strong work ethic and keeps working and keeps pushing. Now, you're the only one that's going to know, is this, am I grinding them out? Am I slogging it out intentionally? Or is this a bad fit and I need to look for a different role? So it could be, just depending on how long that goes on, like you have to look at the situation and be intentional about it. Like, okay, is this just one of those periods where I have to put my head down and work? Or is this just not a good situation in maybe a dead end role, and now I need to look for something else?
You helped me just within my career, learning how to figure that out, work through, okay, am I at the wrong company or am I just in the wrong position?
Right.
And that's huge.
That's
'cause
big.
You can move a position and then like, oh wow, okay, that's where I need to be.
Yep.
And it's not maybe as challenging physically or even mentally, you know? So that's huge too.
And sometimes it's just, hey, I got to get through this project.
Yeah.
I got to get through this assignment.
Yeah.
And then I can move on to the next thing, but it's just going to be a slog getting through
Right.
this thing.
Yeah. how do you keep yourself motivated when you are feeling like that? If it's like a really long, big project, because I mean, do you ever feel like all you do is work? I mean, there's those seasons where you're like, I don't have a life, you know?
Sure.
How do you stay motivated or inspired for doing the thing you know you're supposed to do? You're at the right place right now, but it's tough.
Well, and that's why I say you have to be intentional with those seasons.
Yeah.
And as long as you're still learning something and on the path to what you want to do,
Okay.
then yeah, you keep going, and that can keep you motivated.
Yeah, that's true.
Versus you're working on a team or you're working somewhere where you just don't see a future and you don't see how what you're doing is applicable to where you want to be, right? Then maybe look at what you're doing. But I had really good advice from a mentor early on. He said, never run away from something, always run to something. So if you're in a position that you're not happy with, I would say don't move just for the sake of moving, but really take some time to think about what you really want to do and where you want to be, and then run towards that and look for those opportunities.
Focus on what you want to do. Don't just run, or essentially you're going to run and quit from everything.
Yeah.
When it gets tough.
Or you get into a worse position because you're desperate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's so good. Do you have an example of when you really struggled in a role at work, and how did you get out of that situation?
I don't have an example of a time when I really struggled with my position. But going back to when I was a software developer, I saw, for me personally, the work was shifting to other places. I was interested already in doing work that was more people-oriented, where I'd have exposure to internal stakeholders and to customers.
You liked that better?
That I like that, and I felt like that's an area that I wanted to explore. So that's so that's what I would say is like in that example, knowing, okay, I like where I'm at, I like what I'm doing, but but I feel a gap here. Like, I mean, maybe it can be experience gap, or maybe it could be just a gap in things that you want to do. And so you start looking for roles, and there's where it's really important to be talking to people wherever you work, right? Understanding what they do in different departments, on different teams, and different functions, and spend time getting to know coworkers in different parts of the company, so you can understand their day jobs. Maybe do like shadowing, like following them for a day, and so you can start seeing where you want to go, what might be a good role for you. And sometimes your dream role is a couple of steps away, a couple of hops away, right? And so, but even knowing that like will help you identify where your gaps are. So I want to get to D, but I know I have gaps of B and C first. Okay, so I can set my expectations that I need to do some of these other things and then get that opportunity. But also internally, letting people know you're interested in their team, and kind of what they do can help set you up for when things do come open, that you could be considered for those roles.
They know you're interested in something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is important to let them know that, because if they don't know, then they're going to just wait for people to apply, or they've heard from somebody else.
Yeah,
They'll go that route.
And if you're a person again that's looking for the next opportunity and looking for something to run through to, people are going to be much more interested in you versus if you're just express discontentment with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody wants a complainer on their team.
And they stick out like a sore thumb.
They do, yeah.
I heard somebody say one time that it's really hard to survive at work without one or two friends.
Mm-hmm.
But then I heard in the same interview, the other person agreed, but said your core friends should be outside of work. So it's like you need some companionship
Sure.
to survive.
Sure.
But your whole world, your friends, your closest people, it shouldn't be at work. It needs to be outside of work, separate from that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you definitely need your friends outside of work, and you keep those social circles healthy. But at work, I think for me, it's what am I working on? Am I interested in the things that I'm working on, whether that's the technology or the end product or service? And then two, like, do I enjoy the people that I work with? That doesn't mean they're all my best friends, but you spend a lot of time at work, a lot of time. And so if you don't enjoy the people that you're working with, I mean, look, everybody's going to have periods where you butt heads or have problems.
Right.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like long term, not getting along with someone that you're not going to be happy, and probably they aren't either.
No.
So while you don't need to have your best friends at work, it is good to work with people that you do enjoy and that you do respect.
You need at least a couple.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier.
For sure.
A lot easier. How do you continue to learn and grow in your career? Do you have any go-to resources?
Well, so right now I just started some postgraduate work at the University of Texas
Really?
for artificial intelligence, and
Wow. I didn't know that.
yeah, I just started just recently. I think being curious is helpful and looking at where your industry is going. And so always wanting to learn and develop yourself for where you want to be in 5 years, right? And what you want your career to look like. And a lot of that is, especially in technology, because if you're not careful, technology can pass you by really quickly if you're not working at staying abreast of what's going on. So I enjoy it. So it's not a challenge for me. And I think if your company offers those certifications, those trainings, for me personally, I've always looked at it like if I'm not taking advantage of those things, I'm leaving money on the table, right? So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah.
How do you view being content? I want to do something, but there's a level that I need to be grateful. I need to just be content where I am today. What are your views on being
So
content?
there's content and there's complacent, right?
That's good.
And it goes back to intentionality. Somebody that's not thinking about what they're wanting to do, not really caring about what they work on, you can become complacent.
Yeah.
And in a space like technology, that's when you can get passed by really quickly because
Yeah.
things move so fast.
Yeah.
But that's different from being content. So content is, hey, I know I'm going to be in this role. I just took a role. I know I'm going to be in this role for at least 18 months to 2 years, is what I would say. And so just be content at whatever you've set your goal for, even on the days that you're not excited about it.
Stick with it.
Right?
Yeah.
Stick with it. Okay, I've got to go through this to get through the next thing.
Yeah.
Right? Or, somebody that's in a role and they're comfortable with their level of pay, they're comfortable with their level of responsibility, with the scope of work they're working on. I mean, that's another way you can be content also, just kind of whatever you're wanting out of your career.
Yeah. Does it bother you if you don't get credit for something? Like you caught something that you saved your company,
I
a
think
bunch of money and
early on in my career, I was more concerned about that. Am I getting visibility? Am I getting credit?
because you knew that would help you get a promotion or just to
I just
have
think
it?
it was just immaturity. you know, I what I've found is when you're on a winning team, whether it's in sports or
Yeah.
work, or being on a winning team, if you're at a place that has integrity, they're going to see you.
Yeah.
You're going to be recognized, right? And so, and you also have to have confidence in yourself. If somebody, you know, if you feel like somebody's stealing your idea or stealing the spotlight or taking credit for your work, you can have the confidence that, yeah, but they're not me. They may have taken that idea, but they're not me.
Yep.
And I'm going to have other ideas, and so I'm not going to let that defeat me and, you know, get me down.
And the right people, like you said, are going to see your work ethic and how you show up. So
Right.
just a couple of good ideas is okay, that might be frustrating, but the right people will see everything else that you do that's good.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean you have to be naive,
Exactly.
right? But
May need to speak up.
and you know, but I think in the long term, right, the right people rise up.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you deal with a situation or the choices of others, things you can't control? How do you handle something that you can't control?
Find what part of it you can control and focus on that,
That's good.
right? And then you have to make peace with whatever is beyond your control. But what things you can control, make sure you're on top of that.
What do you do to let it go that you can't control though? Is it something internally is there verses that you use? Do you like self-talk? Do you just not allow yourself to think about it? Like what little deeper way, how do you do that?
I think I've been working long enough that I know that's in the long term things are going to work out.
It's like that's gonna bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
When you're watching somebody.
And you know, a good friend of mine gave me some advice where I was dealing with a difficult coworker at the time, who was kind of acting out in meetings, and my friend told me, he said, "Hey, the chances are everyone else already knows this person's behavior. What they're looking at is how you react to it and how you respond to it.
Wow.
They already know how this person acts. So chances are they're looking at you to say, okay, how's Ray going to handle this?"
Wow.
And that really helped me change my approach to the
yeah.
situation,
That's
you know, and kind of realize, yeah, you know, I'm not going to change that person, and that's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
At times,
Absolutely.
right? But I think it helps to know that if somebody's the focus on you is how you're responding to them.
Yeah. Well, kind of in that same vein, how do you process negative feelings and emotions? Like your personality, do you vent? Do you get quiet?
I'm sure I've vented at times, but I really try not to, right? I mean, I think it's a point of integrity to try not to do those things. For me, like going to the gym, exercise, like that is a big stress reliever for me. But then also have some mentors outside of work or some close friends that have a lot of experience that if you do need to vent and if you do need to talk things out with, you can rely on those people so that you're not venting at work,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
To the wrong coworker.
Exactly. And look, and if you don't have any of those things, then go hire a career coach. Vent to them, get their feedback.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You would be a good career coach.
Plenty busy coaching 3 small humans.
How do you handle failure? If you feel like you failed, do you like panic inside first?
I panic inside. I have self-pity. I feel sorry for myself,
Really?
and then I'll go for like a big walk or a big run. And
I thought you were gonna say a big Whopper
well, maybe
or a
not.
Big Mac. That's where I thought you were going.
And
Some physical.
some physical
Activities,
movement
yeah.
to let it out, right? And you're going to absolutely have,
Yeah.
you're going to, if you're trying new things and if you're stretching yourself
Yeah.
career-wise, you're going to fail, right? But how do you fail? Do you fail in a way where you blame other people or that you get so down on yourself you can't function anymore?
And that's the route you have gone?
Well,
Blame yourself more?
I'm kind of, and internally, we all do
Internally,
that,
yeah.
right? And so I'm just like everybody else. Like
Yeah.
you have those internal times where you're just
Yeah.
like, oh man, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that?
I was just meaning, I think you're not the type to blame people. What I know of you. I don't
no.
think you do that.
Yeah, I try not to.
Yeah, yeah.
So my point being is, you're have some grace for yourself to have those moments of anger and blame and self-pity and all the negative things. I mean, even David said that, right?
Yeah.
Like he wore ashcloth and,
Yeah.
had his pity party, and then he looked to God and said, but you are going to sustain me, right?
right.
And so have grace with yourself to be human, and that you're probably going to be really frustrated after a failure and embarrassed, and allow yourself the time to do that, and then pick yourself back up, right? I mean, some people are impervious to it.
Yeah.
I don't think most people are.
I agree.
But some people are just impervious, right? And they don't bat an eye. But I think most people are going to have some negative feelings after failure. So let yourself feel it, right? And then do whatever you need to do to get it out of your system, and then carry on. And then when you're looking back, because a lot of times with failure, it's not until maybe you're past it for a good amount of time, and you're kind of past those negative emotions, and maybe it's 2 projects later or 2 jobs later, and then you can look back and you can see what you could have done better, right? What you learned, and how you kind of can make it a positive experience.
Absolutely.
But that sounds kind of cliche, and people say that, but it's really hard to do that in the midst of the failure, right?
is.
So give yourself some grace and trust that process, that like, oh, this hurts now, it's embarrassing, but I know at some point I want to be able to look back and
You'll never
be more
forget it.
rational about it.
You'll
Yeah,
you
for sure.
learn so much
Yeah.
from it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a hardest day at work?
Yes.
Can you tell me about
I
it?
was thinking about this when I saw the question. So, I was with a different company at the time. I had been on paternity leave. We had our second child. I got back from paternity leave. First week I was back, we were on a team call, and my boss at the time said, "Hey, we've got this new product, and we've got a pilot customer for it. Like, who wants it?" And just coming back from paternity leave, I really wanted to get, hit the ground running. I said, "I got it. Give me the ball. I'll take it." And he said, "Okay, you need to be in Atlanta in 3 days and present this."
God.
Right? And so,
Never mind.
they had the content all together in the slides and everything, but I had to do this crash course for a few nights, and then I got in the meeting, and it was a stereotypical corporate meeting, long desk, long table,
Yeah.
big conference table, VPs there from the client, and I start going through the content, and I didn't have the confidence that I should have, because I knew, I didn't really know this stuff. And looking back, I should have pushed, back and
Yeah.
waited to do this until I was ready. But anyway, I went, and it was a horrible meeting. And I was fielding questions that I just, could not answer and just fumbling it. And so, sometime during the meeting, out of the corner of my eye, a man comes into the conference room and kind of sits over in the corner. And then after the meeting, he came up to me and said, "Hey, those slides, those are my slides." And so I said, "Hey, I'm sorry. Someone gave these to me a few days ago." And he said, No, it's fine. He said, "But if you really want to learn this stuff," he said, "I'll teach you."
Wow.
And so I would fly there and spend time with him and his team, learning the science behind the product, learning the theory behind the product and the science. And fortunately, the customer had grace with me as well, because I would go visit with their team and just embed myself in their team. And I actually learned a lot from the customer, right, about the industry and about how things were done. And so, fast forward 3 years later, I'm presenting at our sales conference to 300 sellers, about what we're doing. And so, saying all that to say, you can take a really bad experience, and if it's something that you want to continue in, commit yourself to learning it.
Oh, your face. Well, what I was going to say is that kind of goes in line with what we were talking about a minute ago about failure, how you handle it, because you were probably freaking out that you fumbled the presentation, and you could have just run out of there and oh, no, sorry, I messed up your slide deck.
If I could have run out of there, I would have.
That's
if there was an escape route, I would have taken it, but there wasn't.
That's what I'm saying, but look, you stuck it out and you handled it professionally, and look what you got out of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Repeating what we said a minute ago, it can be a failure in the moment, but gosh, it turned out pretty good for you. So would that be your most cringe moment?
Definitely the most cringe moment. Definitely the most cringe moment. And it wasn't like it just went from that to everything was great. I had other presentations and other pitches with other customers, and but I was making progress. And I remember at a different pitch at a different customer, large customer. Mm-hmm. I think they had asked me something. I said, "Look, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out for you and I'll get back to you." Mm-hmm. And I will turn red and sweaty, and we leave the building, and my boss was on this trip with us, and he said, "Ray, you've got no poker face." And I said, "I know, I'm trying to work on it." And he stopped me and he said, No. He said, "People know they can trust you because they know that you're not going to BS them."
Wow.
And he said, "Lean into that." And so I did. Wow. And it's a process of getting comfortable with yourself. Mm-hmm. What you see is what you get, mm-hmm. and being honest with people. And if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know. But if you tell someone that you're going to get back to them with an answer, get back to them with an answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really good. How do you balance your personal and professional life? Mm-hmm. Have you found kind of a good groove there?
Yeah, I'm really intentional about when I get home from work, I put my phone up and it stays up until the kids go to bed. And after they go to bed, then, I'll check, and do I have any messages? Do I have any emails? Anything urgent I need to respond to? But it's really important to have time that you have good boundaries with, right? And that you guard. And if you don't have kids, you can do that for friend time or whatever, right, is important in your life. But it's really important to have those boundaries so that you don't get burnt out, right? And then when you show up for work, you're showing up with everything that you have.
Yeah. What have you learned in business or at work that's helped you become a better person outside of
Also,
work?
sorry, I'm going to go back to
you're
something
good.
you asked about work-life balance. Is that you're probably work is cyclical a lot of times, and so you may go through periods where you're just grinding it out, and man, I've got to work through the weekend. I've got to work through consecutive weekends, and just try to know and try to build in. Okay, there's a certain period of time I'm gonna box this where I know I have to work like this, and then I'm gonna give myself a break, or then I'm gonna take some time off. There's just times that are going to be like that you can't avoid it if you're serious about your career. And so just be sure that you don't do that for so long that you're just completely burnt out, right? You've got to recognize, okay, I'm going to do this for however much time is required, and then I got to give myself some time off.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you are going to have to just know, I got 3 weeks of this, just push through
Mm-hmm.
the 3 weeks, and it's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. What have you learned in business or at work that's helped you become a better person?
Professional courtesy is a real big thing with me. And that can show up in a couple of different ways. How you treat people, right? Yeah, I think you should show the same respect to the president of the company as you do to the people that are cleaning up the office after hours, right, or when you're leaving. Mm-hmm. So being able to treat people with respect, regardless of what level that they're at, I think is something that I've learned, and that applies outside of work too, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's someone that's waiting on you at a restaurant or anywhere else, I just think it's important to treat people with respect. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your opinions working in the corporate world?
Also, sorry, one more thing.
Good.
Is accountability, right? And when you screw up, being able to own it. Like, look, I missed it. I dropped the ball. Here's how I'm going to do it differently next time.
Yeah.
Here's what I learned. And part of the time when I was in those years where I just didn't really have any direction, at one point, I got it in my head I wanted to go to Australia, and I sold my Jeep. I sold everything I owned.
I didn't know you sold your Jeep for that trip.
That's what happened to the blue Jeep, is I
Oh.
sold it for a round trip ticket
Oh
to
my
Australia.
gosh.
Yeah, and so I went to Australia, and I'd never been out of the country,
Yeah.
right?
And you
A
were-
kid
how
from
old were you?
Kerrville, early 20s. And so I went, and man, I think I had $500 in my pocket, right? I ended up staying almost 3 months, but that $500 maybe lasted a week, and so and I didn't have a work visa, and so I was having to take whatever work I could get, right, to get some cash. So part of that was working as a laborer in construction sites. And then part of it was me and some buddies I met there started selling paintings door to door for a guy that was his business, selling paintings. So if you remember back in the day when malls were a thing, sometimes you would find these kiosks in the middle of a mall, and they would have they would have racks of oil paintings. It was like that style of oil painting.
Oh my gosh.
And so we would rent a car, we would fill the back of it with oil paintings, and we would pick out a neighborhood. The guy that ran the operation, he had a huge map of Sydney on his wall. And so he had a couple of crews like us that would go sell for him, and he would point to a neighborhood and, okay, you're in this neighborhood today, right? And so we would drive to the neighborhood, and you try to time it where people are just getting out of work. We tried to go to newer neighborhoods where people, they're newer housing developments where people are moving in, maybe didn't have all their decorations up. And so once we got there were 3 of us, and we would each pick 2 streets. And then it was a numbers game. You would go door to door, and you had your spiel, right? We dressed the same. We had a white button down, Oxford, and jeans. And you'd have 2 armfuls of paintings. And
You carried the paint.
you carry the paintings with you, and you knock on the door,
Jeez.
and you knock on the door, and if the person opened, which they didn't always open it, but if they open, then you'd go down on one knee and you'd pull your paintings up. And so when you stacked your paintings under your arm, you wanted your top sellers in the front. So that's the first thing that people see. And you would just start talking. Hi, I'm Ray. I'm from the States, and I'm on holiday. And you're just trying to keep the conversation going as long as you can. And while you're talking, you're trying to cycle through all your paintings. And sometimes people would slam the door in your face, and sometimes, 1 or 2 of the paintings would attract them. So for every painting we sold, we had to pay the guy that ran the operation 38 Australian dollars. So whatever we could mark up is how much we would keep cash, right? And so, you would go to as many houses as you could, and if you sold 3 paintings for, $58-$60, then you made $60 for that night. And you could stay at the backpacker hostel and you could get something to eat. So it was like talk living hand to mouth. Like it really was.
And was that just totally cringe for you to have to sell that stuff like that?
No, because I was hungry. That's what I'm saying. Like that was the first time where I'd been in a situation where I was hungry, wasn't sure how I was going to feed myself, and it creates kind of a desperation where you're like, hey, I'm going to sell a painting tonight because I got to eat. And I remember when we went to we would sell some paintings, we would get some money, and we went to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like they had an all-you-can-eat Kentucky Fried Chicken in Sydney, and so we would just go and gorge ourselves there and just like leave the little chicken bones on the plate. But it was good. It was a good thing to learn because it taught you work ethic. Like there was no safety net. Like, okay, if I don't sell something now, or if I don't work this job today, like
you're not going to.
There's not any. Hey, mom and dad, send money.
Yeah.
There is. You're not going to eat, so you better sell a painting. Or you better go carry some bricks or pour some concrete.
Gosh. Well, kind of in that vein of selling paintings, what are your opinions of working in the corporate world or being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, both are great. I've been in the corporate world most of my career. I think here are the differences, I would say. If you're an entrepreneur, right, there's, as long as you're badge 1, 2, or 3, meaning like you're one of the founders, right? There's as much upside as you want. But there's no safety net, right? There's no vacation days. And it's all on you. So you're likely not going to have, a marketing team to rely on or a sales team to rely on. Like you're everything and you're responsible for everything and wear a lot of hats. And in the corporate world, you have a lot, depending on the size of the company, you have a lot of different teams providing those functions, right? Marketing, organization, sales, product development. And so you're working across a lot more organizations to get things done. But, the upside is you can have a lot more impact, right? You can impact, a larger market because you're working for such a large company.
Yeah. Was that never in you to be an entrepreneur?
And it gives you the opportunity to do different things, which I've done. You work for a large company, you can change roles, you can move to a different division, you can move to a different team, and so you can have a whole career inside one company, but a lot of different jobs and a lot of different experience in that career. I've worked at a startup. I wasn't the founder, but I worked at an early stage company, so I kind of scratch that itch, and so.
You prefer the corporate world?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what works for me.
Yeah, it's just a fit for some people.
Yeah.
And then there's just people that they're entrepreneurs.
For sure.
Like it's just
you need those
them.
people, right?
You do.
Yeah.
You need both.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the working class. Like you need that.
Yeah.
You need the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
They make the world go round. How important is the Lord in your daily life, at home and at work?
So what
I know you love Jesus, so we can just put that out there that you do.
I do. I mean, it doesn't matter what I say, it matters what I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I try to do is every day, every morning, set aside some time to read the Bible. And, you know, right now I'm reading through Luke. And so it's maybe a chapter, or maybe it's half a chapter, whatever I can get through, and just taking that time to meditate on the word and read through it and pray, and starting my day like that makes a huge difference, because it really just sets you up for the rest of the day. So I, like I said, I mean, I could say, oh yeah, God's very important, but if I'm not reflecting that in my actions, you know, then it doesn't,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what I say,
Right.
right? So I try to set aside that time. I try to be really aware of how I'm acting in public, at work, to make sure that I'm staying in integrity, right? And that I'm walking the talk. And you know, nobody's perfect. We all screw up, and I screw up as much as anybody, but that's what I try to focus on, and that's how I try to live it out.
Yeah, that's really good. I feel like there's days I have to talk to him throughout the day too.
Mm-hmm.
The morning sets the tone, but then it's like, oh, I got to step outside, or
Yeah.
I've got to, you know, go sit in
Yeah.
my car for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And being able to spend quiet time.
Yes.
It's real easy for me to have something going on all the time, whether it's a podcast or music. So it's really important that I intentionally, like you said, at night, also have that quiet time where you can allow
Yeah.
God some bandwidth to speak to you, right? And you're not just listening, listening to
Everything else.
right? So trying to book in the day with that is really important. And then you got to look at, okay, what does the Bible say? That, you know, take care of the poor, take care of the widows, take care. So are you, taking time to really contribute your time to others like that, and your income through tithing? But I think it's also important that you do those things yourself. And work can be like, if a lot of times your work will have opportunities to
That's
volunteer,
right.
and take advantage of those, right? Because somebody's setting it up for you.
Yeah.
That's what's hard, I think, for people is they want to do something for their community, they want to contribute, but where do you get started? So I feel like as Christians sometimes we approach things like, well, if you're not doing something through the church and through the church only, it doesn't count. But but if you're
Right.
hey, volunteer as you can through work, or
right.
through a service program, through church, or even through other organizations, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to live it.
Absolutely.
I heard Tim Keller say one time that it's important to pray that God will lead you, and then trust that you're being led. And so, it's whatever the situation is, easier said than done, but you're trusting that God is with you and walking you through it, even the most mundane things.
What was your salvation experience like?
Yeah, I grew up in church. I said the sinner's prayer as a kid, and I think that God honors that.
Absolutely.
My 5-year-old said it in church with us the other day. So I think God sees
Really?
that. Yeah, and I think I know God honors that. But it was later on as an adult that I was baptized. And so I didn't have a dramatic transformative moment of salvation. But for me, God has used different times in my life to show up
Yeah,
for those moments.
absolutely.
You know, when my dad, your grandfather, right, passed away, I mean, it just hit me really hard. Like, it just crushed me. And we had always talked about doing a trip together to go to Tennessee. It's where our ancestors moved from to come to Texas. And so we always had talked about that, doing like a homeland, right, trip, and we never got to do it. And so after he died, I needed to do that trip. And so I went up to eastern Tennessee, the area where our family was from, and I went into the national park there in the Smoky Mountains and was just hiking for a couple of days. And, the last day I was there, I was about to leave and come back. And, I just had this moment where I had this really earnest prayer to God, just like, God, I just need you to show up, right? This is such a tough time. I need to know that you're here. And then, kind of working through that, I had remembered a story that our pastor had told about when his dad passed away and how, he had kind of this crisis of faith, and he had this moment where, he was going to intentionally follow and believe or go the other direction. And God brought that sermon back, to mind.
Yeah.
And, and I remember that, and I just thought, you know what, regardless of how I feel, I'm gonna follow God.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get one more hike in before I headed back. And so I just kind of randomly picked a trail and went out, and it kind of goes out to this, outlook, this knob, and then comes back. And then on the way back, I turn a corner and I run into this wooden cross about 5 feet high. And on the crossbar, it says my dad's name, which was not a really common name, as you know.
Yeah.
And I just stood there kind of dumbfounded, right? Like, and at first I thought I'd worked myself up into some emotional state and I was hallucinating, right? And, but obviously it wasn't for my dad.
For him,
It was dedicated to someone else with his name, but that was, but you had to get up close to the cross to see kind of the details. Yeah. When you were looking at it from I was probably 10 or 15 feet away when I round the corner, and all you could see was his name on that crossbar. Gosh. And so, so my response to that was, man, God loves me enough to draw me out into the literal wilderness, right? In the middle of nowhere, and take me on this path and on this trail, and to physically meet me right there. And man. Hey, I'm a person, if I can rationalize something away, I will, right? I can make something not a sign by reasoning it away.
Yeah.
And something like that, I guess you can make the case that that's a coincidence, and I'm sure there's some math that would calculate the probability of that happening.
But why would you?
But that's pretty slim. I'm just saying that is a
he met you
that is
there.
a very, if you're going to go that direction, that is a very odd coincidence for those series of events.
That's right.
And so what do you do with that?
Yeah.
They can't dismiss it,
No.
right? And so, whatever's going on with me, I kind of am always able to go back to that moment, right? And say, hey,
absolutely.
I don't know much. I don't know anything else, but I know, God has shown up in my life.
Yes. That's
And then,
so good.
and then the other thing is when, I got married and had a family. When our first child was born, she had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck, right? And so she wasn't breathing when she came out, when my wife birthed her. And so the NICU nurses came in and they took her, and they kind of took her on the other side of the room and laid her, and my wife's crying, so I'm over here, praying with my wife, but kind of side-eyeing like what's going on with the baby.
Yeah.
And, they're handling her pretty rough and, kind of smacking her to get her to breathe. And she finally started breathing. She's healthy and wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, so they had her taken care of. They put her in this, little cart thing. And then the doctors came in and took care of my wife and got her situated. And so the nurse says, "Okay, Dad, you need to wheel the baby down to the nursery." And so I'm wheeling our daughter down to the nursery, and I'm just kind of a little bit disassociated.
Yeah.
I felt like a little detached from everything that was going on because it was a lot, and maybe it was the adrenaline.
Sure.
And we get in the nursery, and they draw a little bit of blood and do all those things, and she's sitting under the lamp. And so I'm standing there looking at her, and I thought, I should put my hand on her chest. And then I thought, well, I think I should ask the nurse if I can do that, And then immediately I have the next thought, which is like, no, dummy, you're the dad. Like, you can touch your baby. And so I put my hand down on her chest, and she just reflexively, grabs my thumb.
Yeah.
And that moment, that was a transformational moment for me also. And then our middle son was born, and he's just like me. I mean, he's a copy of me. And so as I watched him develop, and I've learned a lot about myself by watching him and watching things that he does, and he's so great, and he's so smart, and he's so caring with his siblings. And and so that's taught me a lot about having grace with myself, right? Which then can allow you to have grace with other people.
That's right.
And then our youngest, he's just absolute joy to be around. He's funny and hilarious and thoughtful. And so my point being is, like, God has, and not necessarily like a moment of salvation story,
Not just there, but yeah.
God can use all these different places in your life
Absolutely.
to show up and transform you.
Absolutely. How do you want to be remembered?
I really try and want to be remembered as a person of integrity. I think that is one of the most important things in life, and everybody is going to fall short, right? Me included. And I mean, that integrity kind of flows from God, right? That integrity flows from the word that Christ is the picture of integrity. And so trying to live a Christ-like life and live your life and do the things that you think Christ would do or behave in every situation. And that's not talking about people, not being negative at work. It's all those things, right? Are so important.
That's all right. That's good. Okay, some lighthearted questions.
Okay.
You're at a party. What's your go-to story that you tell?
It depends on who I'm talking to. I'm not gonna...
Is it the one where you put the grass in your mouth?
I thought about that when I was coming over here, so I'll tell the story. So
It's one of my favorite stories.
I'm in high school. I'm probably 16, maybe 17, and I'm coaching the girls' powder puff football team. And in this part of Texas, we have what's called spear grass. And so like a big trick when you're a kid is like, and it has a barb on the end, right? It's very sharp. So you can pull a blade of spear grass out, throw it at somebody, sticks on their shirt, haha. So towards the end of practice, I don't know, we're given some instruction, and I'm talking to all the girls like my age, and I put the piece of spear grass in my mouth to chew it while I'm talking. Well, it starts sliding under the back, like the barb catches in my tongue, kind of slides from the back of my throat, and I kind of flick my tongue trying to get it out. Well, that just makes it go further back, and so then I start gagging involuntarily, and I can't stop. And my buddies stand beside me, just says, "Whoa, what's going on? Are you
What the heck?
throw up in front of all these girls?" And so I grab his. I think he had like a big gulp or something. So I grabbed it and just started drinking as much as possible until the grass went down. But yeah, that's. I don't tell that story at a lot of parties, but this is probably my most embarrassing story.
That's one of my favorites. What is your best quality?
I would hope that my friends would say loyalty is my best quality.
I think you're a fabulous listener. You really are. Because you don't interrupt. And maybe it's because you have 3 sisters, but there's so many nieces, you're around women a lot, but you don't interrupt. You let us finish what we're saying, and then you have fabulous advice always, but
Well, thank you.
You're a great listener.
Thank you.
What do you think my best quality is?
Well,
I put that on there to
think
kind of
you
freak you out, but
use-
you can answer that. If you
No, I don't know about your best quality, but I think one thing that you do really well is you use humor in a great way to lighten the mood, keep things from getting too
Really?
intense, right? Or just keeping things from getting too stressful, which is important in intense situations at work. So
Yeah.
that's one of your best. I don't know if that's your best, but I would say that's one of your best
Interesting.
characteristics.
Thanks. Last question. What advice would you give to someone just starting college and someone that's just starting out in their career?
Yeah, I would say for both, just showing up. There's a saying, it's like 90% of life is just showing up, and I think that's true. It's the consistency, perseverance. If you're in school, if you have courses where you're struggling with the material, at least be in class every day, right? And like I said earlier, take advantage of all the resources you have. If you're starting in your career, just showing up, show up on time, be there when you're supposed to be, spend the time there, and just developing that presence consistently. But I think that applies to everything. That applies to friendships.
Yeah.
That applies to church.
Yeah.
That applies to marriage and family. Because you're gonna screw up, but just be there, and you build that strength. You build those bonds, and you build work ethic, and you build, your personal reputation. A lot of it is just being there. Yeah.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. It's really good. Well, thanks.
You're welcome, Laura.
One of my good qualities. Humor. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time on the Questions Podcast.